Hi, everyone. It's Angela Mazzi. Welcome to the architecting community. And I'm so excited to have as our guest today, Aurora Meneghello. She is a transformative coach, and she's also a writer, a public speaker, facilitator, moderator, and founded Repurpose Your Purpose. So, Aurora's whole focus is to live a life of purpose at our full potential. So, welcome, Aurora.
Thank you, Angela. I'm so excited to reconnect and to be on your podcast. Thank you so much.
Oh, you are welcome. So, I love the work that you do about being inspired, daring greatly, going for it in life, because I think too often we don't do that enough.
Yeah, this is a topic that it's been very relevant to my life, and I think I had different ways of understanding it that brought me to my current understanding, which is one that is really anchored in somebody's every one of us, we have our own inner wisdom and innate well being. And so it makes a big difference when we connect with that and our daring comes from that versus what we think we should do.
So, for those who might not be familiar with you, can you give us a little bit of your history and how you got to working as a photographer in the early part of your career to what you are doing today?
Yeah, I will keep it super short because it was quite a long journey. But I was one of those kids who kind of always knew what she wanted to do. I really loved expressing myself and so the arts, and I went to art school and studied filmmaking and photography. My first career change, this is my second what I do now. My first career change really was very difficult for me because I always had this identity as an artist, as a photographer, and I worked really hard, to get there. And I found myself after years of enjoying it that it wasn't working for me anymore. And I
Mm.
bumped into this very painful feeling of who am I now? And I sort of, if you had asked me at the time, I would have told you that I definitely knew that you're not your job and you're not this and you're not that. But in reality, I really bought into I am 100% my job, right?
Yeah,
It was
big part of
very,
your identity.
yeah, outside focus identity. And so the idea of like, what do I do next when I've always pursued one thing and I always identify with this thing was the hardest thing for me. So I will, just skip ahead. I found a way to reconnect with my deepest being, and I switched to marketing. Enjoyed it a lot. Really got into it from this approach to self development that was very much like reasons or results. You want it, you go get it, and the good part of that is that yeah, I got a lot of what I wanted. Right. The bad part is that I got completely burned out.
Uh,
But out of that experience, something happened that usually happens when you either touch rock bottom or you get what you want. Is that I found that again I had been caught up in this idea of the outside. If I get to that, if I achieve that, then I will be happy. Right?
yeah, that is so much what we all get caught up in, right? Those external validations, those checking the boxes on somebody else's list.
Right. And so I loved your last podcast that you talk about not controlling, right? I was addicted to controlling, and it had worked very well for me in a lot of situations. But when you're addicted to controlling and when you get used to getting stuff because you're controlling, you actually lose your ability of being resilient because you cannot control life, right? And if any of us had any doubts, I mean, after 2020, we should pretty much have all understood that there's no controlling, right? We are so much out of control. And so if your identity and your way of going through life is trying to achieve that way, wow. So I bumped into that. I bumped into, okay, I'm getting everything I want, And now my life is out of control again, and now I'm not happy, and I've lost myself in the process. And so I found that the more outside focused I was, and the more my attention was there, the more actually I lost what was really carrying me and giving me grounding, which was my deeper well-being, my deeper centeredness. And that really led me this realization and embracing the journey of letting go, really carried me to repurpose your purpose and what I do now.
Oh, that's amazing. So I want to go back to these two times when you kind of said, oh, this is not working. What were some of the telltale signs that led you to say, I got to make a really big change?
So when I was a photographer, I was a wedding photographer, and again, I loved it, I really liked it. But I think part of what happened is that I changed. I changed from the inside, and my business grew. And then, if you're a wedding photographer, you're very busy during, of course, weekends, and you get booked a lot ahead of time. And I was already feeling like, I really enjoy this. I enjoy the adrenaline, but something here is not working. And then my best friend from Italy, and this is like a really serious best friend. We're best friends since high school. We have matching tattoos from when I moved here right after high school. Okay, so
That's great.
legit best friend. And she calls me and she's like, I'm getting married. And I forgot what it was, 3 months later, middle of the summer. And guess what? I was booked you know I was booked. It was too close to that date, and I didn't really have the money to give up a sizable amount of my income, buy a plane ticket during the most expensive time to go. That was for me a really big moment of like, okay, I'm not listening to my deeper feeling that this is not working for me. And now I'm getting hit pretty heavily with the thing of like, it's not working anymore. There's something in my life that is not jiving. And I think that's a really important lesson, because a lot of the time we look for something dramatic if we don't feel we want to do something anymore. But it doesn't have to be something dramatic. We change too. Everything flows. If we learn to go with our deeper self, it tells us in a very subtle way when we're ready for the next thing, when it's time to open up. And if we don't learn to listen to the small voice, which is really the most important part, we get more and more hit with it, like in this case. So that was really, for me, the moment where I got very present, and bumped into that big change first time around.
Okay, but you're right. It starts as like little whispers, and pretty soon it's louder and louder and louder until you just can't ignore it. It becomes too painful to stay the same versus to change.
Right. Yeah, and the second time around, I think it was really the sense of having lost myself. And then, it was a function of being more outside focused and then getting it. And I sort of feel like it's hard to put into words, because I don't want anybody here to hear it as in you shouldn't pursue something big, right? Because yes, I love pursuing something big. It's a feeling. It is something where you start, and in my case, it wasn't. I wasn't conscious of it. I didn't realize it until it hit me really big. It's this sense of like, my security will come from the money, my identity will come from the job, my feeling good will come from being successful and having recognition, right? So there's nothing wrong in pursuing success or money or job. But when your identity shifts to that, then you have a different feeling, and it will come back in a way because you have separated from the deeper self. So my work is always about anchoring yourself in your deeper self, because if you're anchored in that, you can play any big game you want, right? You can create a big company if that's what you want. You can go after the biggest success if that's what you want, but you don't lose yourself. It comes from there. So that burnout, the sense of like losing yourself, the sense of something's missing won't be there. You will actually feel in a sense of flow and a sense of harmony. I see when my clients get this, like they drop into this, things open up and their life changes in such a powerful way. It takes over anything else with this sense of well-being and love, and really being on purpose.
I love that you are saying that. I know it is something I preach probably more than people want to hear it, but it's so easy to disconnect from that internal alignment and get stuck in what the world tells us we should be doing or the milestones we should be hitting. I know you were going to talk to us today a little bit about going from that insecurity that can happen when you feel that friction, right, between your internal alignment and meeting expectations and being more confident because you're tapped in. So, when we start to feel that friction and we know we're out of alignment, how do we start to say, well, where's my anchor post? How do I tap into that internal wisdom?
This is such a rich question. I want to say three things all at once. There are three things that really help me with this, and I'm gonna talk about them, and I want to invite anybody listening to this, listen from your wisdom. Listen to what I'm gonna say next, not from this is a rule or this is what you should think or feel, but listen from a place of, is there something that awakes in you when you hear me talk that maybe gives you a deeper insight? So one thing for me that I realized is that there's a deeper intelligence within me and within all of us that's very connected and attuned to everything else. It has a feeling of calm. Even in the worst situation, I can go back to it and it's centered and there's a peace to it. Now, when I was younger, I was very afraid that if I didn't feel the fear or the adrenaline or the anger or any of these other things, that I would actually fall victim to something I didn't see. So I had to really see for myself that it was a misunderstanding. So that what those feelings alert me to is that something is off. But something is off within me, like I'm not centered. When I'm centered in my calm, I can see danger more clearly and I will not be caught up by fear that actually stands between me and doing what I need to do. This is something to experience because, as I said, it can hit you at an intellectual level, but it's a very deep experience that I want to invite you to start trying for yourself. And so the more I saw, in the beginning it was hard, it was really hard, but the more I saw that if I had this inner feeling of something's off, I didn't need to freak out about it, and I also didn't need to take it as literally something is wrong in my life. I had to take it as, I'm curious. Okay, I'm a little bit off from my center. And if I relax into this feeling, if I'm not afraid of it, and if I get back to my center, I will see what there is for me to see. Sometimes what I see is I'm making problems up in my head and I need to chill. Sometimes what there is like, wow, this is really not a situation I like anymore. Sometimes there is, I have a feeling something's missing. I need to investigate, right? Like, I don't know what comes up. That's why it's your wisdom, it's your inner compass. That's why I had to learn to find that place in myself. But we all have that place. The second thing I started to see is that what I used to think as not practical was actually the most practical thing to do. So even when I studied Repurpose Your Purpose, I would say we do inner work and then we do more practical things like your resume. But the more I worked with people who were looking to change careers, grow their business, grow their career, the more I saw that if that connection was not open, if they were not able to be in their inner wisdom, that a 50-50 chance with the tool for
Mhm.
them to work or not. Okay, so it's sort of like you're wearing the wrong glasses if you don't have this, so maybe sometimes you can see, sometimes you can't, but when you have the glasses that were made for you, then you can see 100% of the time. All right, so I really started to see that what I first felt was secondary or not practical, finding a way to rest in myself, taking time off, self-care at a deep level was actually the most practical thing I could do. The third thing that really from confidence, that really from this sense of insecurity to confidence is what I started to talk to you about today, is that who am I shifted, right? Not from here, not from the intellect though. Okay, so you have to know about me. I love philosophy, I love reading, I'm all about information. Okay, so I love all that stuff, but I had to see that unless I started to identify with something deeper, something that you can't quite call, you can't name. I often refer to it as source. You can call your divine self, soul, your soul. Sometimes I talk about it with people as in, that part of yourself that was always there and it didn't seem to age ever. When you were a child, it was there and it feels the same as now, and yet you're not a
Yes.
child. Isn't that crazy? Isn't that crazy? What is that? Right? So,
Oh,
so
I
then
know
what is
exactly what
that?
you're talking about.
Right? So what is that? I'm gonna let you figure it out because however you want to explain it. But I know that it's there for everybody, and in fact, whenever I say this to people are like, "Oh, yeah," like right, 100% of the time. So I had to see that that's who I was, and that's where I could always go to. And the more I identify with that, the more I could deal with everything, know what to do, take the hit, play the big game, fail, succeed, enjoy life, uh, be heartbroken, whatever, right? Whatever comes. But the security came from, but I know who I am. Right? It's a very different way of going through life.
Yeah, and that really resonates for me because sometimes I'll tell people, I just feel like I'm six. It's been a long time since I was that age, but it's how I kind of feel. But I really love that you kind of tapped into that feeling we have when we're children of confidence, of security, of being willing to try things. And children fail all the time, right? It's how they learn to walk, how they learn to do new things, and they don't think anything of the failure. They don't judge themselves. They just approach everything with a sense of wonder. And for them, anything and everything is possible. And as we get older, we start to turn that tap off and we start to become so judgmental and so critical that we shut down opportunities before we even have a chance to explore them.
Well, yeah, a sense of insecurity comes from a sense of separation. So you see very much with children where I think it's around, they're 2 years old, they start to feel like mom is different from me, right? They start to have that sense of separation, and the security comes much more than before, right? You can see. So if you want to take the child metaphor or example, one thing that if you're listening to this, you can really start observing within yourself is if your insecurity in life, anxiety grows, chances are you're starting to believe yourself as separate. And so it feels me against the world, out of control. What if something happens to me? If you can bring yourself back to a knowing that, but you are part of the world. You are made to be able to respond. You are made to be able to feel and sense and contribute. Then the anxiety and insecurity lessens because you're back in a state of harmony or union. And so that was also very helpful to me to start really looking at direction, in that direction rather than the direction of separation.
So a lot of the work you do is helping people define the life they love. So what is the way that you help them kind of zero in on what that means for them and how it could look different but still be the right choice?
Yeah. So I work with people in a couple of different ways. One way is I have a 6 day coaching intensive. We have 6 coaching calls over 6 consecutive days, all about having a deep, profound realization to source, to this that I am, describing today, this sense. And when you open up to that, a lot of the time that's all you need to find your way back, because you always had your way and somehow you got disconnected from that. So that's one way. It's really something that I'm very passionate about, and that I work with people from all over the world. When people come to me and they want specific career change, we do one-on-one work over a longer period of time, but also I have a group program a couple times a year. The next one starts February 1st, 2022. In that program, we work on this connection, but we also do things like really getting clear about what you want from your own truth. A lot of the time, again, we are pushed to want certain things, but really, what is it that you want? And for some people, they go through the program, they even figure out, well, I don't want to change career. Actually, I just want a different boss. I mean, right? So radically, what is it that you want, right? Reconnecting with your gifts, with what you can do, looking in the direction of possibilities, and also learning how to talk about yourself, how to show up in a way that's true to you and bold or confident, right? So from the inside out. So these are some of really the ways where I think it's maybe it might be helpful to describe some of the things I've seen. And I've seen people find their wisdom in such powerful and yet you could say very simple way. Once they do it, it always seems like, of course, right? Like I worked with somebody who was really in a bad company situation, and but they had to they were the financial provider for their family. And at some point, they just decided, I'm going to interview and I'm going to let go of trying to fit in, trying to be what they want, trying to make it work and be super strategic. I'm going to show up as who I am, what I can provide, being authentically myself immediately. Not only got hired, but then the company turned out to be such a good fit. And why? Because when you show up as yourself, you filter out all the people who don't like who you really are, and good for you. And you filter in the people who are like, wow, this person is amazing. You want people to recognize you for who you are. Amazing, right?
Well, it's funny how that works, right?
So really this unlocking, right? This unlocking. And I've worked very often actually with people that want to start their own business as well. I think that's another place where the sense of insecurity. So one thing that I think is very important is to realize that we're all different. So for some of us, having a paycheck and working for a company and doing that career journey is rewarding, and it gives us a great sense of security and belonging, and it's wonderful. For some of us, we think that's the way we should feel. But in reality, we don't feel safe. We have fear. What if we're fired? We feel bored. We don't like office politics, whatever. But we think there's something wrong with us because we feel that way. Well, you are who you are, right? And for those of us who enjoy having our own business, actually, it's amazing to find that the sense of security comes from being grounded and doing your thing, right? So I love this. I never know what people, I don't give assessments. I don't know what people should do. I don't even try to guess, quite frankly. I learned very early during this work that there's no way for me to know. The way things work is that when people find their own inner wisdom, they reopen this connection with source that might have gotten clogged at some point or closed up a little bit. The answers they get can be surprising and yet make total sense.
Yeah, and I love what you're doing with repurpose your purpose and really helping people to leverage their whole journey. Um, this idea that nothing is ever wasted and that everything we've experienced, even the things that feel kind of negative, were important experiences to have in order to learn the lessons we needed to learn so that we could evolve and grow. So, can you talk a little bit more about how you help people use their past to be a springboard for their future?
Yeah. Yeah, my very good friend MJ came up with that idea, repurpose your purpose, the name, when I described what I wanted to do, and it really captures. Well, I think, I'm trying to think how to explain it. There's something, you can think of this as the formless and the form, okay? What what drives you, what always, for example, has been important to me, right? At the formless level was always the same thing, but it's taken different forms. When you can sit in the formless, you see that was always the same, and yet as you grow, as the world changes, as the people around you need different things, it takes the shape it needs to take. The more you let go of wanting to have the solidity, wanting to say, okay, now I'll do this, and then I decided I'm gonna do this, and if forever it will be this, the more you can actually let these forms come about in the way that works the best. So it's very counterintuitive. But the more we can go to source and reconnect, the more then it will come to you. Sometimes it will come to you, it will take the same form with a different boss, right? It will take the same form, and maybe I'm working for myself now when I have a job. Sometimes it will be something very, very different. But you will not have lost everything you've done. So I heard Marianne Williamson on I think it was a podcast with Oprah. I'm not quite sure, but she said this thing that really stuck with me. She said, younger people know more about things that change, and older people know more about the things that don't change, which I thought, how interesting. But there's a little bit of that. So, for example, let's say that you've had a 20-year career in marketing, and you're like, I don't want to do marketing anymore, right? I'm tired. I want to do something else. But you have learned a bunch of stuff during those 20 years: how to express yourself, communication, how to build relationships with people, how to understand businesses or consumers, or depending what kind of marketing you were doing, other skills. There are all sorts of things, including the drive you had to do marketing, that those things don't go away. And so what keeps us alive, what keeps us going in this journey, is that connection to that which is behind the form that before. And when we value that, and we can show up with, I love expression, or I love storytelling, or I love being in service, and I'm open to learning new things or to jump into something new or, whatever it is, magic happens, right? I really love the Tao Te Ching. I have to say, I tried to read it when I was younger. I didn't get it at all, and and then the past few years I found it. It was like, okay, I'm starting to get this as much as you can get it. And it has one part where it says, um, I remember, it says something like only the dead are stiff and rigid, because when you're alive, you move, you're soft, you
Oh,
change,
wow.
right?
Yeah.
Right? Isn't that powerful? So why do we think we have to find something and then get attached to it and reach it? I mean, that's not being alive.
Yeah, that is so profound, that yeah, of course, to be alive means to be in a state of change. It couldn't be any other way.
Yeah. And to feel pain sometimes, and to be happy and all these kind of
Yeah.
things.
My great grandmother used to have a saying, and I don't know if, she used to say it in Italian. I don't know the Italian words, maybe you do, but it essentially was only to the living. And, well, good, bad, whatever, only to the living.
Yeah. Yeah, this is ancient wisdom that, it's we kind of know and then we forget. So there's a part of our mind that is insecure, is looking for problem, is in survival mode, is scared. Well, I still have it. I talk about this stuff and then I have my freakouts, and my insecurity and all sorts of things. The only difference is that, well, it takes a lot more for me to be thrown, but the only difference is that I don't look for solutions from that same part of the mind. I understand I have to go to the deeper part that has much more wisdom. And just to be loving, whatever is freaking out, it's there to, it's trying to protect me. But I don't engage with it as in it's gonna know what to do. It doesn't know what to do, it's just freaking out.
Yeah, that is so true. When we are in that panic, in that fight or flight, we're not thinking with the parts of our brain that can access
Yeah.
that alignment. And therefore, all we are doing is, scattering ourselves. Well, this has been such a great session. I love all that you shared about getting aligned and how we know when we're not aligned. If people would like to hear more from you or work with you, how can they find you?
Yeah, so you can visit my website, repurposeyourpurpose.com. There's a lot that I have there. I write, I have a blog, I have videos, so you can find a lot of content. Also, if anything that I said intrigues you, you can have a consultation with me. We just talk about, and it's actually a real coaching call, so that we can both deepen our work and see if it's a good match to continue. And if you're interested in working together, I want to invite you to take a look at the 6-day intensive and the group program to change careers. Those are very good entry level points to work with me.
Well, thank you. So, everyone, we will put the links to all of that in the chat. But if you enjoyed this session, please go to Instagram, share your thoughts, tag me, tag Aurora. Aurora, what is your Instagram handle?
Repurpose your purpose.
All right. And let her know how much you appreciated hearing this and what you took away. I know that she will be so thrilled to know that you got something out of this. And I so appreciate you making the time to be here and share all of these like pure gold nuggets here with the audience.
Angela, I have to say, thank you so much for having the podcast. I love it, and all the work you do. I mean, it's amazing, and I really love that you're bringing not only this wisdom but all your experience, with architecture. I mean, it's fantastic. When there's all this knowledge, it's really, I appreciate it so much.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you. It's a lot of what you talk about, right? We can't do the work that's impactful if we don't do the inner work. So that's why this is such an important thing to cover. So thank you so much.
Thank you.